Do you need an increase in interest rates to, this is an interesting one. Professor Charles, you might like this one. Does an increase in the interest rate, is it necessary to avoid another asset bubble? That's the question, right? Basically, do we need to raise interest rates to avoid the price of houses collapse? Isn't that basically the argument? Yes or no? Sir?
Oh, we basically discussed, like they're discussing.
Is what I said correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So,
So, Fernie, please.
The low interest rate policy in Canada is creating a housing bubble that could cause.
Sorry, who are you?
Yeah, John.
Okay.
The low interest rate policy in Canada is creating a housing bubble that could cause a repeat of the financial crisis when it inevitably bursts. Bank of Canada has set the key interest rate at 1% since September 2010 and is planning to remain it till 2016. We believe that the low interest rate is to be blamed for distortions appearing in the economy. During a period of loose monetary policy with low interest rates, central banks create easy credits where people can borrow from banks more easily and make people more willing to invest. It will stimulate asset market, and significant impact occurs in the housing market. The low interest rate creates an artificial increase in the housing demand that drives up house prices because people are more likely to take out loans from banks as they benefit from the cheap credits. For instance, in China, the central bank remains the real interest rate near zero, and the house prices have been raised by 300 to 500% in some major cities in the past 10 years. Another example is Vancouver. With Canada's low interest rate, real estate prices are doubled in the last decade, from $600,000 to $1,300,000. Low interest rate does stimulate the economy, but it does not benefit everyone. Banks are always giving the priority to the rich ones who are more credit worthy. That the majority pays and the top earns. And the assets are still mainly owned by the rich ones, which further widen the wealth gap. For example, in the United States, according to Hayden, the top 1% owns almost 40% of the stock market shares, and the bottom 60% owns less than 10% of the shares. In addition, relatively poor people are less likely to take the risk to invest but keep saving. Reported by Lee, in the year of 2011 in China, 50% of the savings came from the citizens, and only 30% came from the non-financial business. However, 75% of the loans went to non-financial business, while only 25% went to the citizens. Moreover, low interest rates will induce inefficient investments. According to Masson, the sustained below equilibrium interest rates can distort the investment decisions and result in inefficient and unprofitable investments. The low interest rate makes people less deliberate about the investment costs. In order to gain, borrowers have higher demand in investing in different properties. However, excessive capital leads to low return to investments. Japan's interest rate is zero now, which results in excessive investments. In the past 20 years, Japan invested 30% more than U.S. total output, but the Japanese economy only grew in the rate half of the U.S. Also, said by Carney and Flaherty, Canadians are spending beyond their means and taking on too much debt. According to the BCA research, Canadian debt-to-income ratio is 164%, which is higher than the U.S. ratio before the Great Recession. We can now see that the long-period low interest rate is creating and expanding asset bubbles, widening the wealth gap, and inducing inefficient investments, which will do harm to the economy as well as the society. Therefore, we suggest that Bank of Canada should raise the interest rate to prevent further distortions in the economy and a possible recession right now.
All right, negative, thank you. Charlemagne? Charlemagne? You're
Yeah.
Yeah, Tim. Oh, yes. introduction, please?
My name is Jason.
Jason.
Jackson.
Okay, Jason. Okay, Jason.
Okay, so we believe that there is no housing bubble in Canada at all, and actually housing prices in many cities of Canada are decreasing. Canadian interest rate has been set at a very low percentage for 3 years after 2010, and we insist that Canadian low interest rate policy is beneficial to the Canadian economy, and Bank of Canada should maintain the status to keep being competitive in world market, create incentives for spending, and stabilize the economy.
First of all, lower interest rates set up comparative advantage to keep Canada competitive in world market. In theory, lower interest rate repel foreign capital and cause exchange rate default. Thus, export will increase and import will decrease. The net export will increase at the
Sorry,
same
who are you?
Shipping.
Sorry, go ahead.
And since net export is a significant component in GDP calculation, so we think economy will grow as the interest rate goes downward. When we look at the global economic environment, we would be aware that the interest rate in developed countries are extremely low in 2013, near zero in nominal term and negative in real term. Increasing our interest rate will hurt our comparative advantage on exports and investments. When the cost of capital is higher in our country relative to other developed countries, investment capital will move out of Canada to other markets with more favorable interest rates.
Secondly, low interest rate creates spending incentives and stimulate GDP growth. On a micro level, a low interest rate would give households more incentive to purchase, and lower mortgage payment caused by falling interest rate have leave householders with more disposable income for consumer spending. When saving is an unfavorable choice, people tend to invest more and consume more. We argue that raising the interest rate right now is not a favorable choice for Canada because Canadians are experiencing a relatively low growing economy and we need all the stimulus we can afford.
I'm getting a little bit confused here. The resolution, do we need to raise interest rates to avoid an asset bubble? Seems like a lot of these arguments have to do with monetary policy in general and economic growth. The issue is, are low interest rates going to cause an asset? And you're saying no. Why not?
That's all in our power.
Okay, so why are low interest rates not going to cause an asset bubble?
Because we believe there's not an asset bubble at all. And it's
Okay. And an asset bubble is what? What's an asset bubble?
It's increasing in like large amount of like the prices and like after to a certain point it might burst, so and causing compression.
So an asset bubble is the price of houses increasing exponentially, extremely fast, and then all of a sudden, poof, they drop. And that's bad. Okay. Now, why does low interest rates, abnormally low interest rates, increase the probability of that, or not increase the probability of that house?
Because our point of argument is that we don't think this is like the pricing that they're talking about, like the increasing price is caused by lower interest rate. You have another argument
Right.
that in your price.
The price of houses is going up for reasons other than low interest
Yeah.
rates.
And also we believe it's only a local issue, and then because we didn't place that in our like the first part, we placed that in our bottom side.
Okay, okay. All right. Affirmative side, would you like to rebut their argument? Sure. Their argument is, as I understand it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that house prices are rising. The asset bubble is house prices off the map. $1.5 million for a little two-bedroom house in West End, Vancouver. And that's just out of control. That's the argument. And they're arguing that's not caused by low interest rates, that's caused by other things. Offshore demand for it. Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand, is this discussion generally about broad class of assets? So you might be talking about stock prices as well as housing, so, or are you focused solely on house prices?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think that we're focusing on housing prices.
Well, the title is housing bubble.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So it's housing.
Yeah.
they argued that the benefits of low interest rate policy, that it's benefiting us and that there's not any housing bubbles that's being created by it. And we think that there is benefits being provided by low interest rate policy during the recession. But Canadian household debt has risen higher than the US pre-recession now, and interest rates continue at this course, then the ratio will not decrease significantly, even using measures supplied by the Department of Finance. And what will happen when inflation picks up again? According to a CD Howe commentary on interest rates, the Bank of Canada will need to raise interest rates, remove stimulus, and protect households and businesses at the same time. And in these circumstances, the bank may not be able to remove the monetary stimulus in time to prevent inflation from taking hold and messing up the economy. And
Is there a question there? Are you supposed to ask me a question?
No.
Oh,
I'm just rebutting the
I'm
answer.
sorry, yeah, sorry.
We also think that they said that they think that the housing bubble is being caused by foreign investment, and Vancouver and Toronto specifically are being inflated not by interest rates but by other means. And we think that, and we argue that there's been a termination of the Immigrant Investor Program as of February 11, 2014, which has caused, which allowed foreign investors to gain the ability to purchase property if they invested $800,000 in the Canadian economy. And with the elimination of that, there should be a decrease in, should follow a decrease in housing costs because of the decrease in demand. There should be, it should go down maybe. And yet, as March 12th, the Vancouver's housing prices continue to rise to a new record level of 7.7 increase this month, while Toronto is down 0.1%. So either the elimination of 66,000 potential bidders in that housing market didn't affect housing prices, or the change was so slight it didn't matter. Also, they argued that raising interest rates would hurt Canada in terms of manufacturing and jobs. And we argue that the Canadian dollar right now is at 0.89 of a US dollar, and the US economy is picking up steam as of late, going 3.2% by the end of 2013. Meaning that there's room for a gradual raising of interest rates and strengthening of our currency that the manufacturing sector could absorb.
Thank you, sir. Steve. Okay. So you want to rebut their argument. So they're arguing low interest rates are going to cause a housing bubble. And you're going to say no, they don't.
So the affirmative is using the housing price in Vancouver as evidence that Canada has a housing bubble. But we would like to point out that the rise in housing price is not a national phenomenon. Drastic increase in housing price mainly occurs in two financial markets, Toronto and Vancouver. Both attract a large number of immigrants. We believe that this is caused by the Immigration Act of 1986 that attracts many wealthy Asian immigrants coming to Canada, and many choose to buy housing in Canada, which causes the demand to increase. So, and it may be true that Vancouver housing price of about $1 million is unaffordable for average Canadian family with income only $40,000 per year, but the housing price across Canada is more affordable. If there's a bubble, then the price of housing of all Canada should increase drastically too. However, according to Globe and Mail, despite the high price in Vancouver, 9% increase, and Toronto 6% increase last year, housing prices were actually falling in many other cities, like 5% in Halifax, 0.6% in Ottawa, 3.4% in Victoria, and 2% in Quebec City in 2013. Therefore, we conclude that the record high housing prices in Vancouver and Toronto are sustained by speculation and foreign investment instead of low interest rate policy that Bank of Canada is having.
And of course, we're partly agree that there is a housing bubble, and even if there is one. But
Who are
looking at,
you? Who are you?
ZHGO. Control.
What's your first name?
ZHGO, or is
Joe.
it? Yeah,
Joe.
yeah. We hardly agree that there is a housing bubble, and even if there is one, but looking at the American bubble as a comparison, as Robert pointed out in his book, the Great American Housing Bubble, the underlying reason is not interest rate, but the Community Reinvestment Act, which put pressure on banks to reduce lending standards and accept borrowers with poor credit and income tax that favors rich people, which increases demand for housing. Low interest rate is only a side effect instead of the real effect. We also look at the national housing price chart. It's increasing and decreasing rate for a period of 6 years trend. And although the ratio of increasing is horrifying 20% in 2007, but now only 4% in 2013 and 3% in nominal term in 2014, and it's even lower in the real term. We believe that lower market already corrected the housing price nationally. So therefore it's unwise to ignore the real underlying reason for the housing bubble to exist and over-exaggerate the effect of local housing price on the whole Canadian